Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Film Nerd Podcast. I am Vince, and tonight I am joined for the first time by three guests, and we are going to be playing the second iteration, the second game of classics. We are embarrassed, we haven't seen. Who do I have on here with me tonight? I'm going to have you guys introduce yourselves.
Kory Schrauben, repeat member of the podcast, third most views ever on the Vince TheFilmNerd Podcast. So that's my shining moment in my career. Thanks for having me.
I'm next. I can't remember. I'm James Edgett. I've been friends with Vince since like sixth grade. Happy to be here, Vince. Thanks for hosting us. It's about to be a great time.
Thanks for putting up with me for more than half your life.
Yeah, let's not bring that up.
And last but not least, hailing from Eagle, Michigan, the golden boy of Wakusa Elementary School, Zac Hess. Happy to be here, Vincent. Excited to play the game. Ready to beat my friends in this awesome movie battle.
Oh man, what great introductions from all three of you. Kory, Jim, Zac, thanks for coming on. Three of my best friends in the world. Couldn't think of three better guys to have on to play classics. We are embarrassed, we haven't seen. And these three guys have had the pleasure of dealing with all my movie ridiculousness over the many years. Kory always asks me for movie recommendations. Zac usually tells me to shut the hell up when I'm quoting movies.
Only horror films.
And and Jim and I have talked about movies for a long time. His dad's got quite the movie collection in his basement. So we've watched a lot of movies. All of us have watched a lot of movies together over the years. So tonight I am going to be the moderator. So in the first outing of this game with Connor and Jimmy Cotter, who were on last time I played with them, this time I'm going to moderate. So Kory, Jim, Zac are going to be against each other, and I will just be making sure the game runs along smoothly. So classics. We are embarrassed we haven't seen. Response to the shame-laden question. What? You haven't seen? And then someone asks you about a movie that they believe you should have seen, but you have not. So as always, excuse to watch some of these films. Finally, play a game, have good conversation with friends. So the goal, as was mentioned in the first outing here, score more points than your opponent in 3 rounds by choosing 3 films that not only you haven't seen, but films that the other participants haven't seen as well. So coming into the game, Zac, Jim, Kory have each come up with 3, maybe a few others to have some options here, hoping that the other people have not seen them. Each participant will start with 3 points, and we've kind of made some changes here on the Film Nerd Podcast. If you listen to game number 1, we had a scoring system in place that did not work. So we have revamped the scoring system. Each player will keep their 3 points unless they are challenged. They will not lose points. You will only gain points. So if the movie has not been seen by the other participants, you get 1 point per person that has not seen it. And then depending on the date of the film, when it was released, you may receive more points. Now, if you have seen a film that your opponent brings to the game, you get their points. So you can also gain points from someone's film that they have brought to the game here. So first of all, before we get started, we should probably establish this. What is a classic? So classic is a movie that has some emotional resonance that lasts beyond the immediate viewing of the movie, has a movie that has got some sort of cinematic importance, and it must be at least 10 years old. I had to set a cutoff, so the cutoff is 10 years. So if your movie is, as of this year, came out in 2011, that would be the 10-year cutoff. All right, guys, are we ready to play? Classics. We are embarrassed. We have not seen.
Ready as I'll ever be.
So since we have 3 first-time participants here, we will start with the youngest participant, which is going to be Zac. So
I
did not know that, actually. That's kind of weird.
Zac's a May birthday. He's a May 93 baby.
Me youngin'.
So Zac will go first, then Jim, then Kory. Kory with seniority, it's more likely he's seen more films. That's the general gist of it. And at the end, whoever has the most points, I'm going to moderate this game, keep track of the points each round, gets to choose the film that we watch and discuss. And we will come back in maybe a couple days or a week, whenever we can get together and finish just after we watch the movie, discuss the movie together. All right, Zach, why don't you kick us off here with the first round of classics we are embarrassed we haven't seen.
Okay, first of all, I have a question just to clear this up. Will you be giving us a score update at the end of every round so that I know what I need to pull out to win this thing?
You bet your ass I will be.
All right, good. All right, well, the first movie on my list, it's a story of family, religion, hatred, oil, and madness, focusing on a turn-of-the-century prospector in the early days of the business. Based on a novel written by Upton Sinclair, starring Daniel Day-Lewis, the film is There Will Be Blood.
Ooh, There Will Be Blood.
It's on my list.
Oh, so Jim has not seen it. Kory, have you seen There Will Be Blood?
I have not.
It's on my list to watch, and I really want to see it, but I haven't had the chance to watch it yet.
It is an excellent movie.
07?
07, yep.
It's often considered one of the greatest films of the 21st century. It's one of my favorites, actually. Do we have any dispute from the other participants on the validity of it being called a classic?
What has it won?
Best actor, I believe.
Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yeah, best lead actor. Let's see here.
Let me ask you directly, Zach. Do you think it's a classic?
I do. Honestly, Daniel Day-Lewis, pretty much anything he touches turns to gold, in my opinion. Great actor.
He's amazing as Daniel Plainview in the film.
Right.
Is it really a classic if you haven't seen it, though?
Well, we could argue that about every single one of these on this list, James.
All right, I'll leave it alone.
That's the fun of the game, though, is because you haven't seen the movie, trying to argue that it's a legitimate classic. Kory, Jim, do you accept There Will Be Blood as a classic?
I'll concede.
I will add this for anyone listening. If there's a tie, if Kory and Jim or Zach and Jim or whomever is arguing the validity of a classic, I will be the tiebreaker. Sounds like it has been.
That was a good one. It's one I've heard of too, which makes it worse, I think.
Zach, because Kory and Jim have not seen it, he gets 1 point per person, and then he gets an additional 5 because it was released between 2000 and 2011. He does get 5 points for that. Jim, you're up next. Good start there for Zach.
Right, yeah. Congrats, Zach. Way to kick it off my list.
Don't sound so enthusiastic.
Extra wife to find you a new one, Jim.
Yeah. No, that might not be a great idea. So I will go with a classic Robin Williams film. Regretful I've never seen it. Raining from 1989.
I know what you're
Dead
going
Poet
to say.
Society.
Wow, it is a classic.
I have not
Zach?
seen it. I'm embarrassed to say I haven't seen it.
Wow,
No.
Kory.
I don't think I've seen it.
Wow.
I have no
Yeah.
idea.
Definitely
Wow.
on the list. I'd like to watch it at some point.
I was going to put it on my list, but I thought you guys would have seen it for sure.
No.
I've only seen it once. It's been a long time. If that one gets chosen by you guys to discuss, I would not be upset because I would love to rewatch it. I haven't seen that one in a long time. Kory, you're positive you haven't seen it either?
Yeah, I don't believe so. It's one of those movies that sounds familiar. You and I watch a lot of old movies. So
Well, and you've probably seen the famous scene where Robin Williams and his class is leaving. It's like there's a moment in the film, spoilers if you haven't seen it, I believe he gets fired or he quits. It's been, again, so long since I've seen it, I can't remember.
yeah, I haven't seen it.
And his English class, he's an English teacher, all the kids start standing up on the desks and they start cheering for him. It's like a really famous, iconic scene in the movie. But you've probably seen clips of it. That's probably why it seems familiar. 1980s film, so it falls into the 1970, 1999 time frames for us, for our point system here. So Jim, you get 1 point for each person here who has not seen it, and you get an extra 4. And so you are at 9. You are 1 point behind Zach. Zach's got 10, Jim's got 9. Going into the final person here for round 1, Kory, what do you got?
All right, here we go. In 2027, in a chaotic world in which women have become somehow infertile, a former activist agrees to help transport a miraculously pregnant woman to a sanctuary at sea.
Great movie.
Children of Men.
Yep.
It won a ton of international awards. Like
Yeah,
a ton.
it's another one that's often. It came out around the same time as There Will Be Blood.
06, 07. Yeah.
Yep. I saw that
So-
movie in theaters with my dad when I was 14. I remember going to go see that.
Now, James, I have a question for you.
Mhm.
Have you ever heard of this movie before?
No.
Neither have I. Yet,
I
so
have
it
heard of
begs
this
the
movie.
question: is it truly a classic?
Oh.
Hey, Kory, what do you got for them?
My argument's going to be that it won like more than 15 international awards.
Name 'em. What countries?
Hold on.
Papua New Guinea?
U.S., Argentina. Hold on, let me pull it up because I just had it up actually.
I was mostly kidding, but
Okay, good.
I think you got a point.
It's going to
for
take me
that.
a second.
I mean,
No.
all the awards make me feel like it's got to be classic, but I just have never heard of it.
So why I would call it a classic, Kory, and you
There we
haven't.
go. This is what I need. 'Cause I haven't
What do you
seen
got?
shit else.
What do you got?
No, you. I need your.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I actually in the film class that I do and in my film club, there's a scene in this movie that's a very famous oneer where they captured the entire sequence in one take, and they mounted the camera to the roof of the car of the interior. And the camera spins around. They had to like outfit this car with a special camera. It's cool behind the scenes. The camera is constantly moving around the car, so you see all the characters reacting to this mob that's outside the car attacking the car. So it's like all this action is going on and the camera never cuts. And there's actually more than one. This movie's really famous for multiple single take sequences where there's a ton of action and like violence and stuff going on while they're following the characters through the set pieces. Emmanuel Luzbeski is a Mexican cinematographer. He's the cinematographer for that movie, and he's won a few Academy Awards for his cinematography. Alfonso Cuarón is the director. He did the third Harry Potter film. He did Gravity. He did Roma. He's done a lot of great movies. I would argue that it's often considered one of the greatest films of the 21st century.
All right, here we go. I'm going to give it to you.
Okay.
3 Oscars, 2 BAFTAs, 1 Academy Motion Picture of Arts and Science in Argentina, 2 Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films in the U.S., 1 Alma Award, 1 American Society of Cinematographers Award, 1 Art Guilds Award, an Austin Film Critics Association Award, and it won another Austin Film Critics Association Award. Australia, Ward Circuit Community Award. Yeah, and the list literally goes on for like 15 minutes.
You missed the biggest one. In 2016, the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation, took a poll from over 100 film critics from around the world, and it was voted one of the 100 best films of the 21st century by all those people.
I believe on
From
your
the man
last
himself.
podcast, James
Layup.
Conner brought up the fact that Ted was in the top 100 of some list as well.
Empire.
So,
That was Empire, though. This Empire is a magazine. I'm talking about a film critics
I
association.
believe it was The Guardian, but yes, also a magazine.
Oh, it was Guardian.
Yeah.
Listen to
as
you. Listen to you listening to my podcast. Thanks, man.
I'm just here to support my friends.
All right. So it sounds like we're going to accept Kory here.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay. So Kory, you
I
are
didn't watch that
also
one.
up to 10. You think you saw it, James?
No.
Oh, I thought you said that you had seen it.
No, I said we need to watch that one.
Oh, we need to watch. It's really good. I love that movie. Zach, Kory, after round 1 are tied with 10. Jim is very close behind with 9. 10 to 10 to 9.
But you know the old saying, if you ain't first, you're last.
Any thoughts heading into round 2 here, gentlemen? How
You
we
heard
feeling?
my thought.
We
I'm
confident?
worried about my other movies, but I'm good with that one.
See, this is why it was more fun for me to be the moderator, because I saw all those movies.
That does help, where you can like put your own input into it too. So I like that.
Yeah, this is
That's what
fun.
it was.
This is fun. All right, guys, ready for round 2 here? Zach, you can start us off. What do you got for your second pick?
Okay, so this is a film that I'm sure Vince will be ashamed of me for not having seen.
That's a common pattern on this show for
Wow.
most people, I feel like.
It's true.
Oh, we got a cat cameo.
Is that shrimp or
Or
Jenny?
ass. What's a
Well,
V?
Jen. Okay,
Here.
my film is
Yeah, but
it's a 2006 film,
Ooh.
starring in a minor role Cesar Vea, Manolo Solo, written and directed by one of Vince's favorite writer-directors, Guillermo del Toro.
Oh, I know what movie you're going to say.
It's about a bookish young stepdaughter of a sadistic army officer escaping to an eerie but captivating fantasy world, taking place in 1944 in Spain. The movie is Pan's Labyrinth.
El Laberinto del Fauno. Pan's Labyrinth. This is the second, fun fact, this is the second film I showed in film club at Grand Ledge High School back in 2017.
So I want to add to this. I've known of this movie for a long time.
Very famous film.
Very famous film, yes. Seems a little weird for my take, but definitely something I want to check out because I've heard such great things about it.
It's often described, and rightfully so, as an R-rated version of Alice in Wonderland in the Spanish language and taking place during World War II.
So isn't an instant classic, though?
I would argue for it, but I'd be curious to hear what Zach has found.
So my argument is it's an 8.2 rating on IMDb. It's won many awards. I feel like it's very well known throughout. But maybe that's just because it sticks out to me because of its, I don't want to say weirdness, but because of how unique it is and the plot and the, I don't know, characters within it.
Well, and it was famous at the time it came out because it was one of the first international films to kind of gain popularity and recognition in the United States. So this is a Spanish-produced film. It was produced entirely in Spain. I think it's a co-production with Mexico. The movie is in Spanish, and it made a significant amount of money. It was in the theatrical circuit in the United States, and it won 3 Academy Awards. I know we're seeing that more recently now, where you're getting more and more foreign language films at the Academy Awards getting recognized and winning awards. But back in 2006, it wasn't quite as often. So for at that time, it did win 3 Academy Awards as a Spanish language movie. So it's pretty groundbreaking for its animatronics. All the creatures are practically designed. There's CGI, but a lot of makeup, weird makeup and costumes. It's super violent too. There's a couple scenes that are like hard to watch. It's a great movie, really good movie.
Yeah, I was gonna say all that stuff. I just couldn't flip the right page in my notes here. So, but thank you for picking up my slack, guys.
You're welcome. I just was trying to help you out there. What do you guys think, Kory and Jim? Have you guys? I'm assuming you both shook your head, right? You haven't seen it.
Yeah, I'll let Jim go first.
Yeah, I've never seen that. I think it's considered classic if you showed it as your second film in your film class at Grand Ledge High School. So
our first
that's a case closed.
I'm glad
right
he
there.
went there, not me.
The first month I ever did was fantasy, and I showed 2 movies. I showed Wizard of Oz and I showed Pan's Labyrinth because I showed them a classic American fantasy film, and then I showed them a more modern international fantasy film, and we kind of compared the two. It was a pretty fun opening for the club.
Yeah, I'll say that's a movie I, quite frankly, I don't think I've ever heard of, but as you explained it, that does sound pretty interesting. So I'll concede.
I also believe
that was the most upsetting conceit I've ever seen in my entire
It also has I'm not a huge fan of scoring aggregate sites like Rotten Tomatoes and things like that. But it's widely known as the highest rated film ever on Metacritic's site. It has a 98 out of 100, which is the best reviewed film on their site in the 2010s. So that kind of adds to the universal praise that it's received, but
deal. I'll accept it.
Yeah.
I probably will never watch it, but I'll accept it.
I have if you want to borrow it. Unless the winner picks it. So Zach, with that pick, you are up to 17. You get 2 because neither of them have seen it. Then you get 5 because it came out in the 2000s. Zach, 17 points going into round 2 here. Jim, what do you got, brother?
Oh, I think I need to jump into 2000s to 2010s. Chip away at this deficit a little bit. I feel like I'm getting a little risky here. A movie I've never seen. Babel.
Oh, from one of my favorite living directors, Alejandro González Iñárritu, with Brad Pitt, and it's I think it was his first English language movie. It came out 2006. You guys are hitting the 2006. Who was in this other than Brad Pitt? I always forget. Oh yeah, Kate Blanchett. That's right. That is a weird movie. It's a really weird one. I remember seeing it when it came out.
Yeah, it looks really interesting after reading up on it just this half hour before jumping on here. But yeah, I won 1 Oscar, was nominated for a lot.
136. I forgot it had 7. Yeah, it was nominated for a lot of awards, 7 Academy Awards. I forgot I got nominated for so many.
What's it called?
Babel. Babel.
Babel.
Yeah, it's one of these movies that basically kind of interlocks or interlaces, multiple plot threads at the same time. Like there's a huge variety of characters and multiple plots that take place around the world, and they all connect because of one event. Like there's one uniting event that connects like people from like 4 or 5 different countries. And it kind of it's a really depressing movie. Alejandro's movies are really like thought-provoking, but they tend to be depressing and have like very somber or like, not happy themes. A lot of the time they're a bit more depressing films, but they're very well done.
He did The Revenant, right?
Correct. The Revenant and Birdman were his last 2 movies. He hasn't made a movie in 6 years.
Vince, have we watched this?
I don't know if I've watched it with you. I haven't watched it in a while. I remember watching it I feel like I rewatched it around the time The Revenant came out because I was trying to watch all of his movies. Okay. We might have. I don't remember though.
It doesn't. I mean, it sounds like I've seen something like it, but I don't think I've seen it. I mean, it's definitely not ringing a bell. So
Kory and Zach, are you guys accepting the validity of the claim that it's a classic, modern classic?
It only won 1 Academy Award. So, no, I think it is. It sounds like a cool movie. I've not seen it. I'd like to see it now that I know about it, but I concede to that.
Got Brad Pitt in it. Sign me up.
The first movie watched on this series was Brad Pitt's breakout role, Thelma and Louise, last episode. Well, all right, Jim, it sounds like you've been accepted, brother. So you get 7 points there. You are right behind Zach, 17-16. Kory, what do you got to end us with round 2 here?
I'm going to pour one out for my dead homie, Robin Williams.
Another Robin Williams. The Birdcage.
1996. Definitely have heard of this. Never have seen it.
I just showed that to Caroline, I think last year. She had never seen it.
That's the one
before its time.
Jeff Bridges is in that, right?
You're thinking of The Fisher King.
You're right, I am.
That's a really good movie too.
Yeah.
The Birdcage is based on it's a remake of a French film. It's a remake of a French movie where it's a gay couple, Robin Williams and Nathan Lane, who's a very famous actor, great actor. They play a gay couple who run a club in Miami, I believe. And correct. He has a son from a marriage with a woman, and the woman pretty much left their life. I don't even know if she's ever mentioned the movie, but like him and his boyfriend, they're not married, pretty much raise his son together. So they're his dads. He calls them his dads. Well, his son meets a conservative family's daughter, like a Republican senator or something, who's played by Gene Hackman. And he's got to he lies to them because it's not an
trying
ideal.
to avoid telling.
Well, yeah, especially back in the 1990s. I mean, it is a comedy film, but it does play with a lot of serious themes. It's a really good 1990s movie with a great cast, really great cast.
Is Diane Wiest character? Is Robin Williams' character the boyfriend to Nathan Lane?
Yep, they're the couple. They run a drag queen nightclub. It is hilarious. The situations in the movie are really funny.
Mackenzie and I have been watching Modern Family, and Nathan Lane has a lot of guest appearances as one of the friends. And I the first time he came on, he was cracking me up. I'm like, I can't picture the voice. Like it's
Timon.
Yeah, it's Timon from Lion King.
Yeah, and
I know
was
most
ever
most
since,
people
it's like-
forget that. Yeah.
Ever since it's like I can't not picture Timon.
You just picture Timon standing there.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
The movie was also praised by, at the time there wasn't really a label for it. It wasn't really the LGBT community like it is now. But at the time, GLAAD, the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, won awards from them and received a lot of praise for how they portrayed a gay couple in the movie, and they kind of break through some of the stereotypes. And there is some like homophobia in the movie, but it's not like one of those movies where it's like the whole movie's about homophobia. It's more about kind of playing with those family roles and kind of, progressives versus conservatives, which is a lot of fun. It's Robin Williams is great, and so is Nathan Lane in it.
I'd accept that.
Yeah, I don't know that
He's dead. It has to be a classic.
Well, last episode, Connor McKinney with Heath Ledger argued that if someone dies too young, Robin Williams was 60, but I think that was, it was a tragic loss. He argued that their filmography becomes dipped in bronze. It's untouchable.
Well, and I don't know. I think we all can agree that most of the things that Robin Williams has touched have turned into be classics.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Such
I would put this up there with one of his best movies for sure. He's had a lot of great movies, but I think it would be in a top 10 for me. So Zach and Jim, you guys are cool with it?
Yep.
All right. After 2 rounds, gentlemen, we got 1 round left. Zach is up by 1 point. We got Zach has 17. Jim, Kory both have 16. Kory got 2 points plus a 4-pointer there with that for being in the 1990s. So we're at 17, 16, 16 heading into round 3. How are we feeling heading into the last round here, gentlemen?
I got to find a movie in the 2000s.
Oh, Kory didn't come in prepared, did he?
Yeah.
No, I have one, but it's in the 80s
Oh,
or
okay.
90s.
Yeah, we got to see if Zach's got another 2000s film.
I do. I'm trying to decide my strategy here. If I want to take a little risk it for the biscuit, or if I want to, because I think this one maybe.
Now, it hasn't happened yet. Okay, it hasn't happened yet. But remember, if someone else has seen the film, you don't get the points and they get the points. Keep that in mind. That's why it gets a little bit of strategy trying to determine if they've seen the movie or not. All right, Zach, you ready to start us off here with the final round?
I think I'm ready. I feel pretty good about this. Okay, so this is a film from 2001. It's really more of a musical than a film, starring Ewan McGregor and Nicole Kidman. The film is Moulin Rouge.
I've seen it.
Oh!
That is my mom's favorite movie. I've watched it.
So Jimmy's seen it 100 times.
Yeah, 100 times.
Oh,
Zach, you
damn.
forgot, I grew up in a household
Oh,
of
no.
sisters and a mother, man.
It's one of my mom's favorites too, and I've seen like bits and pieces. But when she was all about it, 2001, we were what, like 7, 8. Kory was 15, but no, but we were little, so I never watched it, even though my mom loved it as well. But dang it!
Ooh, so Zach stays at 17. It sounds like they're not going to dispute the validity of it being a classic. I would say that they shouldn't, otherwise they would lose the points. So Zach does keep his current points. He will finish currently, well, unless he gets points from Jim or Kory, depends on their picks. So Kory and Jim, you guys just both got 5 points. It's a 2000s movie, so you each got 5. So it's currently Kory and Jim at 21, Zach at 17. Zach's only hope at winning now is if he's seen either Kory or Jim's movies.
Wait, so how many points did they get total? They both got 7?
No. So if the movie that you bring to the round has not been seen by your opponents, you get 1 point automatically per person, and then you get the release date points. If you've seen the movie that person just said, you're just getting the release date points. So they each got 5 points.
Okay.
So we have 21 to 17. So Zach is not out of it. He's got to hope and pray that Jim and Kory have a misstep here. So Jim, what do you got?
Oh man, I'm in a complete holding pattern. I want to try to make sure I play this correct. Trying to decide if I should drop back a couple of decades. And
so this is where the strategy comes in too, because Zach, if he had picked an older movie that they'd seen, it wouldn't have been as many points, So that's why you got to, if you go with an older film, it's not as many points, but then maybe they haven't seen it, so it's kind of like that balance.
Nah, I'm gonna stick to the guns. 2008 movie, Sean Penn classic, Milk.
Like this?
Yeah. Sticking with the gay activism note that Kory had touched on. So
I have not seen Milk. I haven't seen Moulin Rouge either. If I was playing Zach,
I should get
Zach
bonus
would have
points.
got it. So I've not seen Milk. I remember when it came out because 2008 was. I remember 2008 was a great year for movies. I remember there's a lot of really good movies that came out that year. Obviously, The Dark Knight came out in 2008, and there was a lot of other ones as well. Damn, I forgot Milk was nominated for 8 Oscars.
Vince, I'll second you on that. That 2008 time frame, I'm looking at the Academy Award winners for Best Picture and runner-ups. I did not see a single one of them. So yeah, it must have been a tough year for us or something. But yeah,
You didn't seen any of the movies that came out in 2008? The Best Picture nominees?
I don't want to.
Slumdog. Oh yeah,
I don't want to piss on any names right now.
Slumdog Millionaire, Curious Case of Benjamin Button.
Nope. Frost Nixon.
I never saw Frost Nixon.
I've never seen any of those either.
The Wrestler came out that year. The Wrestler's
Vincent,
really good.
you gotta stop listing.
Thunder.
Vincent, you have to stop listing movies, or else the game is going to be null.
See, I'm just actually, now that I've got this threshold, I think I can just kind of take it all and just roll with it.
So, what about this film to you as an American classic?
Yeah, that's the only thing now, because now what do Kory and Zach?
Yeah.
Is this a modern?
Well, not American classic, El Classic.
All right, let me start off. We got 2 Oscars won, 64 other wins, 144 nominations. It's a story of Harvey Milk and his struggle as an American gay activist who fought his way for gay rights and became California's first openly gay elected officer. So obviously in 2008, that was a very, big time for the LGBTQ community, making strides to equality. The stars, Sean Penn, Josh Brolin, the director by Gus Van Sant. It's, I think it drives a very big point. I remember when this movie came out, it was in the press like nonstop.
I remember getting a lot of marketing, heavy marketing for this.
Yeah, I remember just seeing it all over the place, and I never saw it. Obviously, in 2008, this must have been a black year for us, but blacked out for us. I don't know. Who knows?
We were too young for probably a movie like this really in 08.
But yeah, I think for itself, the award, the nominations, the premise behind the movie, I think drops it right into an instant classic.
Kory and Zach, do you dispute it? Has he convinced you? It has to be unanimous.
It's on the cusp of being a classic, but I would say yes. You could argue that. I mean, it has the accolades to be a classic.
I will say the first Google image that gets brought up is a picture of the cover of the film that says, it's a critique from someone. It says, an American classic. So,
Is it really?
yeah. So I guess I just have to concede.
All right, Jim. Well, that puts you here at 28. Plus, you get 1 point per Zach and Kory having not seen it. An additional 5 for it being released in the 2000s. We have 28 Jim, 21 Kory, Zach 17. Final pick, Kory.
All right, this one's close because this one was on Netflix for a very long time, and I'm fairly positive I started it probably like 8 times and only maybe watched the first 10 minutes every time. So, The Boy in the Striped Pajamas.
Oh.
Classic 100%, never finished it.
Okay. What's it about?
7 wins on 7 nominations. Through the innocent eyes of Bruno, the 8-year-old son of a commandant at a German concentration camp, a forbidden friendship with a Jewish boy on the other side of the capped fence has startling and unexpected consequences.
I actually have not seen this either, and I own it. I bought it because I found it really cheap. I found it really cheap because I'd never seen it, and I've always wanted to. I've always heard it's really good at portraying the Nazi extermination camps.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I just pulled up Google Images, and I feel like I've seen the premise of it before. I I can't tell you the plot or anything else about the movie other than like I distinctly remember seeing the two young characters at some point, but
It was on Netflix for like 3 years.
It is also based on a book, and I think I remember the book being talked about or discussed or even read in school.
That's what I'm wondering if it was.
I swear I remember in like middle school this being like assigned as a book that was read. Like I'm 99% positive in middle school when they did the World War II like Nazi unit, because I remember in like 7th grade there was like a unit on World War II and Hitler and the Nazis. I think we read The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. I could be wrong, but I swear we did.
That's what I'm thinking too, Vince, but I don't think we would have watched this movie.
I think I remember being shown clips of the movie in class, but not watching the whole thing, because I think they would have had to get permission slips to show the whole thing.
Yeah, that would have been tough. It's PG-13.
I think I remember them showing clips.
Pretty violent era.
I've never seen the whole thing. I know for a fact I haven't seen
it. It must have just been clips. But it was like middle school, because I remember watching it and like, I don't know. I remember like the scene where they're like by the fence, and
I do have like an image in my head of seeing them on either side of the fence. And I'm like 99% positive. We read the book, and I think it was Mrs. Hereford, Hayes Middle School grads out there, attendees. I think she was the English teacher, 7th grade, who would have shown it to us. But Zac and Jim disputing Kory's movie here. Are you guys cool with it?
I've never seen it, and I'm behind it.
I've never seen it. I feel like I should fight against it because I'm definitely a loser either way, but I need to go down swinging.
You can fight against it. It has to be unanimous for it to be included. If you want to be that guy, you are more than welcome to.
I mean, I could be that guy, but I think I'm gonna just concede to it. It's got too many awards for me to argue against it. Too many smarter people than I have said it's a great movie. So.
It's a movie that I think is often talked about within the context of like education as well, too, like in college and high schools and middle school. You know, whether it's historically accurate or not, I'm not completely sure on. But
yeah,
so
internationally,
what's that?
Renowned.
Yeah, because
internationally renowned.
Yeah, because it actually was a co-production, United Kingdom and United States. So, end of round 3. We're in an interesting situation here on the Film Nerd Podcast with classics we are embarrassed we haven't seen. We have our first tie.
Ooh.
So,
2 shows in, first time.
What'd you say?
Second show ever doing this, first time.
So we have 28, 17. So we are going to, what's that?
So it's just a drubbage.
So we are going to go to sudden death
Ooh.
between Kory and Jim. You guys each have one film you got to pick here. All right. One movie.
How much time do we have? I already have another film, but
and Zac and I are both going to count.
Ooh.
For having seen the movie.
Oh, sweet.
To make it be a little bit iffy here, because
can I still get points here?
Absolutely. Let's do it. Let's keep Zac's score going here. So you each get one movie. Got to pick one movie. Jim will go first. We'll keep the order. And I'm going to be included now for the point system. So if I have not seen it, you will get another point. If I have seen it, then you're not getting quite as many points as you could if I have. So choose carefully. All right, here we go. We have our first ever sudden death on classics we're embarrassed we have not seen. Granted, it's only the second time playing the game. All right, keeping with the same order. Jim gets to start us off. Remember, you now have 3 people included in the scoring for sudden death, myself being included now. Jim, what do you got?
All right, again, I'm going to draft right off of Kory's basically plot type. I'm following you with the World War II Jewish work camps.
Did you just describe concentration camps as Jewish work camps?
That's the kindest they've ever been said.
This is literally what it says on IMDb. It's Jewish.
Oh, does it really?
Yeah. But yeah, I'm banking that we have at least Kory and Zac have not seen this.
Oh.
Vincent's definitely seen this. 1993, Schindler's List.
Oh, I've seen it. We watched it in school.
Oh. They still show it in school. They still show it at Grand Elementary School.
When he walks out with his underwear on and pops the dude in the head in his white.
I think it's shown. Is it shown in A Push? It's still shown because I know when the kids talk about it when they watch it.
Yeah, I saw it in school.
I have seen it. I actually showed it in my film studies class last year, so I just rewatched it last summer.
Well, can I go Audible and go Crash?
So wait, Zac, have you seen it?
I have not seen Schindler's List. No.
Okay, so Jim, you do get a point for him not having seen it, and you still get 4 points because he hasn't seen it. But Kory, you have seen it?
I have seen it, yes.
So Jim, you only get 5. Okay, so you are at 33. So Kory and Zac saw it, right? So Zac, or no, you have not seen it. Okay, sorry. Sorry, rubbing salt in the wounds. I'm an asshole. All right, Kory, here we go. For all the marbles, you're 5 back.
I'm risking it for a biscuit with this one, but I think it's going to be okay. 1988 film. So I'm fairly positive none of us have seen this. Miracle Mile. It's about a young man who answers a telephone, and it is a person on the other line saying that they're going to atom bomb LA. And really, it's a sci-fi movie about them trying to escape LA.
I'm going to be honest, I've never heard of this movie.
Never seen it.
Is this a classic?
2 wins on 4 nominations.
Classic.
It was an Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films. It was the winner of the Saturn Award for Best DVD Blu-ray Classic Film Release. And Film Independent Spirit Award nominee for Best Supporting Female, Best Screenplay. So
I'm going to be honest, I've never heard of this movie in my life. So I'd be curious to see what Jim and Zac, what do you guys got?
So I got no horse in the race here. I'm so far behind. I'm limping along here. I've never heard of the movie. Once again, it's hard for me to say. I'm not a movie expert, but I don't know if I consider this one a classic. If Vince hasn't heard of it,
that's pretty damning.
I've never heard of this movie. I'm sorry, Kory. Where did you find it? How did you find this? How did you find this?
How'd you find it?
I don't remember. I think I was just going through like classics, and then I was going by decade, so that was in the 80s.
I don't even recognize
Anthony Edwards, Mar Winningham.
The only thing I recognize about this movie is who made the music. Tangerine Dream, great band, 90s band, made the music. I've never heard of the director. Cast list here. Who's even in it? Anthony Edwards. I don't recognize anyone else.
The awards for it aren't. I mean, I think the top award would be the Sundance Film and Independent Spirit Awards. There's a Best Special Effects, which is.
I'm going to leave it up to Jim. I know that. Well,
told you.
I don't want. You know what? I probably shouldn't leave it up to Jim.
I'm gonna say no.
Hold on. Let's look it up here real quick. 2-minute break to look it up.
Hold on. No, this is sudden death. We don't get a whole lot of time to look this up.
No. I'm saying to look it up so we can say.
I'm going to be honest with Kory. I would probably just say this is not a classic. I've never heard of this.
I don't think this is a classic.
And I'm not seeing much to back up online here to call it a classic. All right, so I'm keeping that in. I'm not editing that. That was great. Eating the hot dog. So it has been determined in game 2 of classics we are embarrassed we have not seen that in the first iteration of sudden death, that Jim gets the points, Kory does not. So the final score after sudden death, Jim 33, Kory 28, Zac 17. All right, so
Game is rigged.
Jim, you are the winner. Would you like to pick a film for us, and then we can end before we wrap things up? We can discuss maybe some other movies you guys had if you want to chat a little bit. Jim, there are. So let's recap here. Zac had There Will Be Blood, Pan's Labyrinth, Moulin Rouge. Jim had Dead Poets Society, Babel, Milk, Schindler's List. Kory had Children of Men, The Birdcage, The Boy in the Striped Pajamas, and we shot down Miracle Mile.
Let me do a little look-see here. I know There Will Be Blood really intrigued me.
I can, if you want to take a second too, we can take a second and I can edit this out too.
No. You know, I'm really curious about Babel.
Babel.
You know, I love me some Brad Pitt. You know, I don't mind watching some Brad Pitt. There we go.
Kory. As Connor McKinney so eloquently put it in the last episode, Mid-Michigan's premier physical media enthusiast. All right, so the champion has spoken. Jim is the winner of the second game of classics we're embarrassed we have not seen, and he has chosen 2006 Babel from Alejandro González Iñárritu. So before we end this portion of the podcast, gentlemen, did you have any other interesting picks on your list, movies you have not seen? Obviously you can, be careful what you choose. I'm sure we will all get together and do another episode again at some point, but any other interesting films that would shock us to hear that you have not seen?
Zac, go ahead.
Zac, what you got any that you want to share?
So I'll let him rip. I don't know if all of these will shock you. I think this one, Vince, you'll be ashamed of me. I've not seen Coraline. I know that's one of your favorites, Vincent.
One of my favorite anime. That would have just made the cut too at 2009.
Yep. Coraline was on my list. Dirty Harry with Clint Eastwood.
I watched that a long time ago. Yeah.
That's for those of you who don't know, that's the movie with famous line, "Are you feeling lucky, punk? Well, are ya?"
Go ahead. What does he say? Go ahead and make my day or something.
I think so. I had Fantasia on there, an old Disney classic.
The original?
The original Fantasia.
Wow.
Seen that.
$1 Million Baby.
I haven't seen that one either.
I did see that one when it came out.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
That was what I was worried about. And then one I don't think anybody's seen, but I guess I was trying to keep it more, I don't know. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
I have not seen that one either.
Oh, you have?
No, wait. Yes, I have. I saw it at Grand Ledge in history class. Matinga Ragazz showed that movie in class, in world history class. I did. I would love to rewatch it, though. I haven't seen it since then.
That would be interesting to watch, see how it held up.
Yeah.
You would know if you saw it. It is weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen it. But yeah, it has a ton of awards. And the last one on my list, which I think Vince will also be ashamed of, is No Country for Old Men.
Oh, that's one of my favorites.
Oh, man.
Jim's like, yeah, that's one of my favorites.
I've seen parts of it, right? I've seen, the part with I don't want to ruin it for anybody, so I won't say exactly. But I know kind of the plot of it, but I don't think I've seen the whole thing all the way through.
Yeah, such a good one.
It's a good one, yeah. Jim?
Oh, yeah. I've got some shameful ones here.
You got any doozies? Any doozers for us here?
I've never seen The Departed.
Oh, you guys are picking a lot of great movies from 2006 and 2007.
Yeah. Followed that up with Shawshank Redemption. Never seen that.
Wow.
I know.
Great movie.
I've never watched any of the Lord of the Rings. Never really been in my...
I whenever people say they haven't seen Lord of the Rings, though, I get it, because if you don't like fantasy, it's 9 hours of fantasy.
Yeah.
So if you don't I love it. I mean, they're some of my favorite movies, but if you don't like fantasy movies, I understand that one.
Yeah. I've never seen Gladiator. I've never seen...
Oh, wow.
That's a good one.
What's the one, the Scottish one?
Braveheart?
Braveheart. Never seen it. Gangs of New York, I've never seen.
I just showed that to Caroline. She had never seen it. We watched it a couple months ago.
I mean, they all look super interesting to me. But yeah.
Sounds like we got another good episode coming up. We'll have to wait a little bit, and hopefully you guys don't cheat and rewatch this episode.
I will.
Kory, what about you?
So I have the good graces of being your friend. So we have spent many Sundays watching 3 to 5 movies with a case of beer, and
we literally
classic.
We the funny thing is you're not even kidding. There's more than one weekend I remember we watched like 2 or 3 movies like in a row on one day.
Yeah. So a lot of the newer classics I've seen. Other like older ones I couldn't name any right now, but I haven't seen. But yeah, none off the top of my head where I'm like, no, I haven't really seen that. Like, I really want to. So.
Well, all right, guys. Any parting thoughts here on the game before we end it to watch the movie and discuss at a future set time?
I do have one question for you all, which I don't want to make this go too long, but do you have any classic movies that you have seen that you don't think anybody else has seen?
Yes.
So I have one in mind. It's one of my favorite movies.
That's a really good question.
I think it's interesting to think about because,
I like that.
So one of my favorite movies, it's an old classic, is Cool Hand Luke.
I've
awesome
never seen it.
Oh, it's an awesome Paul Newman film.
I've never seen
definitely
it.
An old style, but it's a great movie.
I'd have to think about some of the movies my dad almost made me watch. Like goodness, I was just looking at the name of it. Full Monty something. Python.
Monty Python's Holy Grail.
Monty Python's a great movie. I've actually seen that in at what's the place where they do plays in East Lansing?
Wharton Center.
Wharton Center, huh?
What about the original Mad Max?
I have seen the original Mad Max. I have not seen Mad Max 2, The Road Warrior, or Beyond Thunderdome, but I have seen the very first one.
I think my dad and I watched the first 2, but I don't think we've seen Road to Thunderdome yet.
I actually have all of them. I just have not taken the time to watch them. Have you guys seen any Charlie Chaplin films? That would be one that I always, would use as like a old one. I've seen one of my favorite movies is his feature directorial debut, The Kid. Love The Kid. Have you guys seen 2001: A Space Odyssey? See, this is why I would just dominate this game.
I've heard of it.
I watched too many movies. Stanley Kubrick.
What's your classic that you don't think we've seen?
What?
What's a classic?
This is a classic chick flick. Clueless.
Oh,
I've never seen Clueless.
I've wanted to
Great
say
movie.
I've also never seen
Fun.
Clue. I've never seen Clue either.
I haven't seen that. I don't know what that is.
I feel like I've seen it just because of the whole 2 sisters and a mom thing where we would always
probably
get
have seen it.
ridden. It's probably one of those movies I've watched but was never paying attention.
right.
Definitely a chick flick. Definitely on the corny side, but actually won quite a bit of had 11 nominations, 6 wins. It's just a fun movie. Chick flick.
Yeah.
Well, all right, guys. We'll cut it off here. And those of you listening, thanks for listening to the second episode of Classics We're Embarrassed We Have Not Seen. It is now going to be seamlessly edited together and feel like just mere minutes between this game and our discussion of the 2006 film Babel. If you don't want to be spoiled for the 2006 film Babel, watch it, come back. We're going to discuss that movie. And just like that, in what seems like mere minutes, we are back. What has it been? A week? It's been almost a week.
Yeah,
pretty close to it.
One whole week.
So we are now going to continue our episode of Classics We Are Embarrassed We Have Not Seen with a discussion of the film that James picked for us. He picked 2006's psychological drama film Babel from Alejandro González Iñárritu, who is actually one of my favorite directors. So I had seen this film a couple times before. I had texted you guys and said I hadn't seen the movie since I think Kory and I were debating whether we watched it together a while ago, and I had seen that on Letterboxd. I logged it in 2016, so 5 years ago was the last time I watched it. I remember seeing this when it came out, but none of you guys had seen it. What did you guys think? Zach, what are your kind of initial thoughts here?
Oh, I get to go first.
My initial thoughts were I really liked it. I thought it was a high quality movie. I could see why it won so many awards. Very emotional movie. I guess that's typical for drama. I'm not a huge drama guy, but I do enjoy a good one if it's a good movie, and this was good. Definitely took you for a little bit of a ride. It had me kind of trying to figure out what was going to happen next and how the people and the characters were connected. But yeah, no, I thought it was a good movie. I do have a question that I don't know if we want to get into yet.
Well, I was gonna get everyone's initial thoughts, and then we can dive into kind of some specifics here. Kory, what did you think?
So I screwed up, and I have seen this movie, so I'm just going to come out and say this. I'm fairly positive it was with you at your mom's house, if I remember right. But solid movie, like the psychology part of it, how everything was linked. I thought it's a good movie. It's interesting. It makes you think a little bit of like how much this actually happens in real life on like a day to day.
Jim, you picked it, and Jim actually sounds like he's the only one who didn't like it. Jim texted our group chat and said that he wasn't a fan. What are your kind of initial thoughts before we dive into it a bit?
Yeah, I don't know. I concede the points where Kory and Zac are coming from with how everything's linked together. It's a really cool premises, and with the way it was shot and everything, and the landscape, it was very, very cool. There was a few scenes where I was like, that's really neat. But at the end of the movie, I was just left thinking, are we allowed to swear on this thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just thinking, what the fuck? I was just left thinking, like, what was the point of the movie? Like, I was just left, like, with so many questions. And I maybe it's just because, I'm not a film nerd, or I don't appreciate the quality of film or whatnot, but I couldn't get my head wrapped around why, like, so many things were left open-ended, and I was left frustrated. I was left like sitting on my couch as the credits were rolling. I'm like, what the fuck?
But that's kind of
before we get into it, I just want to add my thoughts because I'm glad Jim went. I kind of had him go last intentionally because my hope is maybe after we discuss it a little bit, maybe Jim might not still like it, but maybe he'll kind of appreciate what Iñárritu is going for a little bit more. Now, if you haven't seen any of his other movies, I think you guys have all seen The Revenant. I don't know if you guys have seen Birdman, the one that came out with Michael Keaton the year before The Revenant. Other than those two films and Babel, all of his other films are Spanish language movies, if I remember correctly. And all of his movies, if you're not like familiar with him, are super like depressing. Like all of his movies deal with like tragedy and like people who are broken and like we got a lazy cat on the podcast.
Dead cat on the podcast.
If you're watching on YouTube, you can see a dead, not literally a dead cat, a sleeping cat. But like all of his movies, if you're not familiar with like, especially some of his earlier work, like this movie, but he only did 2 movies. This was only his 3rd film. And his 2 films before this are also like super depressing. And again, they always deal with kind of realism, like grounded realism that has to do with like tragedy and grief. A lot of his movies deal with grief, characters who are going through really awful circumstances. And I completely understand people who don't like watching that stuff. It kind of gets into like people describe it as like depression porn or like misery porn. That's the term. They call it misery porn, where like you're just being subjected to just misery throughout the entire film. And I have to be in the right mood for it as well, but I just love his whole aesthetic, like what he does. I don't think this is nearly his best film. Personally, I think Revenant and Birdman are his 2 best movies, and they're way better. But I think this is a really good movie, but it's not one of my favorites. And actually, Zac, I don't know if you want to go back to you wanted to mention that you liked the movie, but you didn't think it was a classic, and that was where I was going, where the argument and the game kind of just comes around, just kind of picking a movie that you haven't seen before that maybe has gotten a lot of buzz, but not necessarily a classic. But Zac, you sounded like you had something else you wanted to add. I just wanted to put that in there before we kind of got going.
Well, yeah, that was one of my points. Was I was going to tell Jimmy that I think it's bullshit because it's not actually a classic. No,
I called me
did-
out beforehand, buddy.
no, that's the thing.
That's
So
on
like,
you. That's
I
your
thoroughly-
demons. You got to settle with that.
I thoroughly
Win to win,
enjoyed
baby.
the movie, and I see why like it won all the awards. But if I was to play this game again, I definitely would be quicker to call a movie out as not a classic. And I think a lot of our justification for why a movie was a classic was all the awards that it won. And I don't think that is necessarily enough to make it, a classic. Like when I think of a classic movie that I think we all would agree on, like Sandlot, that's a classic movie. Did that win any awards, Vince? Do you know?
I don't know. I'd have to go.
Right. But like that, because that to me is like the classic of all classic movies. And granted, that has ties to our childhood because it was like
Well,
a big
and
movie growing up.
that's
but-
where
Or like
like
Godfather, like
Right,
movies like
right.
that, if you said it to anybody, they'd be like, "Hey, like that's a classic," and this one
Right.
probably doesn't fall. under
well,
that.
but I like you both just mentioned two radically different films, right? The Godfather and Sandlot. Like they're classics in their own right. Like
Right.
Sandlot is like a childhood family film classic.
nostalgia.
Absolutely. And The Godfather is just classic and important cinema in general. So it kind of gets, that's what's fun about the game is, you've never seen these movies that you're recommending. So you guys, the participants of the game kind of get to decide, they get to vote, what they want to watch and what they decide is a classic. And then, we pick a movie, we come back and maybe it's not necessarily a classic. And I think Babel's a really good movie. I think there's a lot of discussion to be had about it. But I would agree that I wouldn't call it like a classic film. I would call it a film worth checking out. If it's the kind of movie that you're in the mood for.
Sorry, I have one more thing, if that's all right.
Go ahead.
The other thing I was going to say to Jimmy's point about how, it kind of made you uncomfortable, and at the end you're like, what the hell? Like, what was the point of that movie? Like, I think that is the point of the movie. And like, I think you said you called it tragic realism or something like that, Vince. Like that style, like that's what it's meant to do. It feels like it's kind of a negative, dark, realistic movie. Like these things could happen. It's just like unfortunate
Happens every day.
Right.
All day, every day.
Unfortunate circumstances. And it was interesting to see how, one accident could spiral and like into terrorist threats to the US. Like that's pretty wild. And it makes me wonder how much of that's actually real and how much of that happens.
Well, and I think that is one of the coolest things the movie does. And I was reading Roger Ebert's review in 2006, and he named it one of his favorite films of 2006. And he liked how there's like no heroes or villains. It's just people, right? And like it's just people who are stuck in like horrible circumstances that by no fault of their own, it's just like a series of a major theme of the movie is miscommunication, right? And that's the title of the movie, right? The title of the movie is Babel, which if you're not familiar with the Bible, the Tower of Babel, there's a Bible verse and a chapter in the Bible that talks about God built the Tower of Babel and it ended up creating like all of the languages in the world so that people could not communicate with each other. And so Babel, the title of the film, is a reference to that biblical story and how in the movie we see 5 languages: English, Spanish, Arabic, Japanese sign language. And there might even been maybe some local languages in Morocco that were used. So maybe even 6 languages. And so there's that literal miscommunication where you have people who literally can't understand each other. And then you have people like who are emotionally disconnected, right? Like Brad Pitt and Kate Blanchett, Richard and Susan, right? Their characters are emotionally disconnected. And then you have people like the Japanese girl, Chieko and her father who have a bit of emotional disconnect as well. And then you just have miscommunication, like not understanding, situations, like in Morocco, things kind of spiral out of control so quickly just because of just one stupid thing after another. And there's a great line in the movie that's like very self-referential to the whole film is the actress. She was nominated or won an Oscar. She was nominated for an Oscar. Adriana Barraza, who played, I think her name's Amelia in the movie, The Nanny. She says, "I'm not a bad person. I just did some stupid things," right? Because the little boy tells her she's a bad person, which is a really sad moment. And just like heartbreaking, like when she's raised these kids their whole life and he's like telling her she's a bad person. She's like, "I'm not a bad person. I just did some stupid things." And that's like true for the whole film. All these people none of them are bad people. Even the boys aren't bad people in Morocco. They do stupid things. And I guess we didn't even really introduce the film, but it's kind of a hard movie to even describe, because the movie really is about, it's kind of four storylines in four countries, right? Because basically you have Brad Pitt and Cate Blanchett's characters who are vacationing in Morocco. And Jim, you were texting me and asked, why are they in Morocco? And I think that's part of the miscommunication. They have a conversation when they're drinking Coke and they're eating before they get back on the bus. It's a very brief moment, but Cate Blanchett, or Brad Pitt, I think, says Cate Blanchett's character, I thought you wanted to come here. It was like there's some conversation we don't know about. It seems like they're in a bad place, maybe about to be divorced, because Brad Pitt says, you're never going to forgive me. It's like maybe he cheated on her or something. So there's something there that we don't know about. And it seems like they're taking a vacation to get away. And then it's like they ended up going on a vacation that they didn't both unanimously, like mutually want to go on. And then on top of that, you have the nanny at home watching their kids, who's trying to go to their son's wedding. And then after the boys in Morocco end up getting this gun from the Japanese guy over in Japan, shooting Susan, and then they have to stay there. So then the nanny is forced to miss her son's wedding or take the kids with her. And the movie kind of basically plays out this idea of like globalization, right? That in the modern day, some guy in Japan can sell a rifle to someone in Morocco. That gun ends up shooting someone, which forces someone in the United States to do something that they shouldn't do and gets them deported. So like this one gun from Japan caused all of these situations across the world, which is kind of, I think, was it Zach? One of you guys brought that up. It's the butterfly effect, right? One thing happens.
There's almost like
just
five. There's almost like five things that go on. Because if you think about it, like you have the rifle being sold, but then you also have the Japanese girl like struggling with just everyday teenage life. Granted, she's deaf, but
and that's the only storyline that I'm not huge on, actually.
You didn't like it? Depressed Japanese girl?
I think it's the most disconnected storyline because like the gun from Japan completely ties together everything else in the movie. And then it's just like he threw in this narrative about like where the gun came from. So like
how I took it. Sorry to interrupt.
Go ahead. You're good.
I was going to say how I took it was the dad is actually disconnected from the family, and that's why the mom commits suicide because he's traveling the world and hunting and doing all this stuff, which created the mom to commit suicide, which created the depression with the girl. Mm-hmm. So like, I mean, it's a reach, and you also don't learn about it until the end of the movie.
I think they could have kept that a little bit neater, though. It was a 2.5 hour movie that felt like 2.5 hours. I remember watching it and being done with it, and I was exhausted.
It is a chore because it's not a happy movie. So to do 2.5 hours,
I think that portion of that film could have been, cut a little bit differently. Maybe shift the focus to like, I don't know, but yeah, that was one of my big things too. Is it felt like such a long movie.
So you're gonna watch again this weekend, Jimmy?
No.
I can understand where you guys are coming from with that storyline being disconnected. Now that you're saying that, I see it more than I did watching it. But I was kind of fascinated with that storyline because I don't think about being deaf in America, let alone being deaf in Japan, and being like a young person who wants to go out and have fun. And like that scene where she goes into the club and it's like really loud and then it cuts to nothing. It's like, it's really kind of puts you in her shoes to like be there, but not hearing anything. And I don't know. I thought it was really interesting. It was a cool way to shoot that scene.
I do like that moment. That use of the sound editing is very well done to kind of give you that point of view. And it's sad. It continues that theme of like, putting yourself in someone else's shoes throughout the movie for, circumstantial stuff with her having to pretend, right? She's like with her friends and, they're all having a good time. And so she just has to pretend. And I think her one friend who can kind of talk, I think she must have like maybe partial hearing because it seemed like she didn't have to pretend. Whereas Chiyoko's like completely deaf, like has no, like, they went to her point of view and it's like kind of like maybe a little bit of a bass that she could feel. That was about it. There's nothing. So I like elements of that story. And if I had to complain about something, I just felt like that's the part of the narrative that to me just feels the least connected to everything else. It is connected, but in terms of like the rest of the events in the movie are so directly like the result of everything in front of it, right? The gun from Japan is sold to that guy from the guide. He gives it to his boys to shoot jackals. They start messing around shooting at a bus. The Cate Blanchett's character gets shot. They have to stay longer in Morocco, so Amelia has to, in order to see her son's wedding, take the kids with her, which results in them getting chased by border customs because of the whole thing at the border with her nephew, and then she gets deported. So like all of that stuff, in like sequentially, like is boom, 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 boom. It's such a like clean, and then you just have this story about the deaf Japanese girl, which is interesting and has a unique perspective, but like it's just kind of going on. It just happens to be the family where the gun came from. But
Let's talk about this Mexican wedding for a minute, because that looked like a whole lot of fun.
That's a whole nother part of the movie too.
I forgot about that.
Part of the movie.
Like we were talking about, I completely forgot that they had the Mexico part was in the film. That looked like a good time.
Well, and I like that you brought that up, because that kind of brings up how we have like 4 distinct cultures, 4 languages, 4 countries, 4 cultures, and you get to like see a sneak peek into every culture, and they're so different, and they're all like weaved together. I think that is probably also one of my favorite things about the movie, is kind of watching this very realistic dive into modern cultures in 4 different countries. Yeah, that wedding did look like a lot of fun.
What's also interesting is that that's like a happy moment on the Mexican side. What she's struggling, like smoked in the neck, sitting in a hut in Morocco, like on the verge of dying.
And I think that's
so like there's like
very intentional.
Yeah,
very intentional, because I think
I was waiting for somebody to get smoked in the wedding.
I was gonna say that as exciting and as cool as that wedding looked, I was anxious that whole like scene. I'm like, one of these kids about to get popped or gonna get like strangled by this chicken or something. Like, I don't know what's gonna happen.
When the guy pulled the gun and shot it in the air, I'm like, here it goes. Somebody's been smoked.
I know. I couldn't remember how that sequence went, because it's been so long since I saw it, and I was trying to remember if like the cops came to the wedding. I couldn't. After he shot the gun, I'm like, oh, like I was pretty sure something happened because of the gun, but then nothing did. But I couldn't remember.
So sorry, Jimmy, go ahead.
Yeah, what was the point of even showing that? I feel like I'm picking on the film again, but there was a lot of scenes I felt like through this whole movie, that there were scenes that felt like they were supposed to be like grabbing you, like the boy went behind the rock and was doing his thing, and and then the gun.
It related to the Japanese girl, because the Japanese girl was looking for sex. And then the boy, the young boy was also young boy was also searching for that.
That is a legitimate thing to point out, because that boy, obviously living in like rural Morocco in the middle of nowhere, all he sees is his family all day, every day, and he's like in the middle of puberty, so he like no internet, no TV, nothing. So like his sexual drive and hormones are going all over the place. And so obviously there's some issues there. And then you are also seeing the sexually frustrated girl in Japan. So I think that is very intentional to show like 2 completely different people on opposite sides of the world. I think they're trying to show you that people have similar problems in completely different cultures and completely different places.
I think it was.
Go ahead, Zach.
I was just gonna say, I think that little guy doing that, it was partially building his character too, because like he was kind of a little fireball, right? Like he's going behind rocks and playing with himself, and he's shooting at buses, and like he's all about taking down Big Brother and like showing him what's up, and he's like not here to play by the rules. And then it's just kind of that rebellious phase that you go into, and you're like, I don't know, 8, 9, 10, whatever, however old that kid was. I don't know. I thought that's kind of, it was building him up to be like this rebellious kid, where in the end he like breaks down and it's like takes ownership for everything that he did and realizes that what he does has an impact on the people around him.
Yeah.
So what happened with the kid? I don't think they ever say what happened to the Moroccan family.
Nope. And I know Jim was saying earlier that he was kind of frustrated with some seemingly unresolved storylines, but I think that's kind of the point. Is it's the whole movie is a glimpse into this series of events that are all tied together because of a gun, and then when the movie ends, some of it's resolved and some of it's not. And I think that's kind of life. Life is super messy. And I think that goes to Iñárritu's realism. A lot of his movies, again, have this grounded sense of realism. Even the camera work, I don't think I remember seeing any mounted shots. It was almost always handheld. Like it was always handheld camera. So there was a lot of movement with the camera. The camera's constantly moving to kind of make you feel like you're there. You're like standing there with them. So I think that's very intentional to that sense of realism. I also love the music. The music is the only thing this movie won an Oscar for. It was nominated for 7 Academy Awards, and the one it won was Best Score. The Zach, I was curious to hear your thoughts on the music because I is it guitar? It sounds like they were plucking. Was it plucking on an acoustic guitar?
I mean,
the main theme of the movie. A lot of it plays in the credits.
Well, I didn't watch the credits, so
you didn't listen to the score?
Strike one there.
Oh man! It's played throughout the film too.
Yeah, I listened to it throughout the film. I can't say that it like stuck out to me, but it was probably like Moroccan Spanish guitar, like maybe I don't know, sitar or something. I don't know. I would have to listen to it again and specifically pay attention to it. I was trying to figure out the storyline more than I was listening to the music.
Yeah, the music to me is like one of the most striking things of the movie. It's not played a ton throughout the film. If I can pull it up really quick.
Yeah, I'll say.
So are we supposed to watch this again?
Watch it again?
Yeah, Jimmy, you have to watch this again.
No, thanks.
If you don't watch it again, Jim, you're fired.
Pardon my time. I'll take my resume. I'll resign. I'll say I also didn't pay attention to the score during the film. It did do a really good job, though, along with probably just the plot and the way it was set up, that it did build a lot of suspension. And that was one thing I'll tip my hat to it, is that I felt a lot of emotions watching it. There was fear, there was depression, and like ultimately I was like, that was part of the reason why I felt so exhausted at the end of it. It was so many feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hopefully I don't get copyright striked, so I'm going to do it very quickly so I don't get a copyright strike when I upload this video. But this is the music I'm talking about.
That sounds like a Middle Eastern instrument.
And then this as well. This is violin and piano.
Yes.
But the other one, the second one was the one I was thinking of more. This. What do you think that is?
So have you've seen, like, it's probably like a sitar or something. It's like, those big, tall, what a sitar is, right?
Yes.
It kind of looks like a guitar. It's got a lot more strings. It's like a Middle Eastern type instrument. It might not be exactly that, but it's probably something similar to that. That's what it sounds like.
That was the theme that I was saying was so distinct that I really enjoy.
Or it could be some sort of like harp too. I don't know.
Uppity banjo.
Yes, that's it.
Go ahead if you were about to say something.
No, I can't remember where I was going, so never mind.
If anyone else said anything else, I was gonna add a couple other things. So what did you guys think? Obviously, the cast is very multicultural, and I thought it was worth mentioning that Rinko Kikuchi, I think that's how you say her name, who plays the Japanese girl. She was the first Japanese actor to be nominated for an Academy Award in 50 years.
Wow.
I think she was the last. So she was nominated for Academy Award, and then Adriana Barazza, who played Amelia, was also nominated for an Oscar for this movie.
Rightfully so.
2 of the 7 nominations for the film. What do you guys think of Brad Pitt and Cate Blanchett in this? Obviously, their roles are pretty minor.
I liked that they were just there. I was expecting them to be like the focal point of the movie, and while they kind of were, maybe they weren't, but they felt like they were because I could relate to them the most of anybody because I'm an American with kids or with a kid, but you know what I mean. I felt, sorry to kind of change topics. I don't mean to go too far off, but that was another thing about this that made me curious what I would have thought if I would have watched this before having kids. But now I don't ever want to leave my kids with anybody when I go on vacation because I'm afraid they're going to take them to a wedding in Mexico and leave them in the desert.
An illegal immigrant.
Right.
That everything about that is so sad.
Yeah.
like that she had taken care of those kids from birth. She had lived in the United States for, I think she said 15 years.
She was forced to care for him that weekend too.
Yeah.
Like she didn't want to, but she was just forced to.
Well, that's what's so sad about the movie is like had everything gone fine on the vacation. Obviously, there wouldn't be a movie if everything had gone fine on the vacation, but then she just would have gone to her son's wedding and everything would have been fine. So it's like that chance, horrible sequence of events just ruins everything. I think Brad Pitt and Cate Blanchett being, I would have to look more into it, but I think them being cast is incredibly intentional to get more people to see this movie. The movie made $135 million on a $25 million budget, and I would have to believe people seeing, oh, Brad Pitt, Cate Blanchett, that they wanted to go see the movie. And I'd have to go back and maybe look at audience reception, but I'd be curious to know if a lot of people are like, what the hell is this movie?
They walked out going, what the fuck?
I wanted to watch Benjamin Buttons.
That's why I picked that movie to add to it. I was like, oh, Brad Pitt, classic.
If you don't like long movies, that Benjamin Button, I think, is almost a 3-hour movie. It's a long movie. Brad Pitt, I thought was really good in this. The scene, I also liked how there's moments in the movie that overlap later on. Like obviously early in the film, when the kids are at home with Amelia, the phone call from Brad Pitt, you see his version of it much later in the movie. So I kind of like how there are some moments that come back around like that. But that moment when he's in the hallway at the hospital, I thought was a really great performance from him. I thought that was a really great moment. I don't, the characters, those two characters don't have a lot of depth. They're very simple. It's just a white couple from California rich couple who's having some marital problems. Like there's not a whole lot of depth to their characters. I don't feel like.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt. Jimmy, go ahead.
That kind of is, I think, what is part of my problem with a lot of. One of my big beefs with it afterwards, I wrote down the note, is I think because there are so many characters, I feel like I didn't get enough character development or character background to fully get invested into a lot of it. Where I think it's because I'm spoiled with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and they do such a good job of just like doing little things to build and create emotion towards characters. But like Brad Pitt and Kate Winslet, I felt like at the scene when they're eating the food in Morocco that they're hinting to something's wrong.
Yeah.
Like, tell me tell me it. Just tell me. Like take
why?
a second to say,
I'll tell you.
But why do you need to know?
Over it,
they do tell you. They do tell you, but it's very, very subtle. Didn't you catch it? No. They had an infant that died.
That's what I thought it was, but I didn't. It wasn't clear to me. Like
but it sounds like they killed it or like were responsible.
No, I think it was a. I think it died in its sleep. It was Sid's baby.
Because Amelia, remember when Amelia's with the kids, the one girl says she's scared of going to sleep because she doesn't want to die like Joey. And then Sammy. Yeah, I remember it was a Y name. And she goes, that only happens to really, really little babies. So it's implied that Sid's is what took the kid. I earlier said that I thought they were having marital problems because he cheated. I forgot. That's right. The death of a child.
The other problem too. So the baby had SIDS or whatever, died from SIDS, and then Brad Pitt's character took off.
Yeah,
because he couldn't handle it, and he like left somewhere and then came back, and that's why they were having all the problems. No, it wasn't Morocco. He just left.
He's just being a smartass.
Good one.
So I guess
that's why he was in the desert of Morocco.
My thought on it is that it felt so subtle that I don't know. I like to think I'm a pretty attentive person. I definitely was.
Apparently not.
I guess so, but man, like I felt like they kept like feeding you little pieces, and like I'm trying to pick them up, and I'm like, what's this even mean? And like I was just trying to scrabble for that.
Those are my favorite movies though, because then you get to have discussions like this. If it was just just thrown up on you, you wouldn't be able to have these good discussions.
I know. I like it presented in a nice little package where you see Iron Man develop into a hero and sacrifice himself. Spoiler, sorry. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I missed a lot. I think if I watched it again, I might enjoy it more. But
it is a movie because I think this is the third time I've seen it since it came out. I saw it when it first came out, and I think I saw it in 2016. This is my third time watching it. So like it does help that I've watched it more than once. But I do agree with you. That's the other reason it's not one of my favorites of this filmmaker, is because it is kind of hard with so many characters that you don't spend a lot of time at any one given moment with any of them. It's, the narrative is not linear, right? It's kind of interweaved together. You kind of jump back and forth with scenes that always parallel each other, which I think is it's very well edited, where like the themes kind of line up with scenes like from different countries. It's like, oh, they're kind of going through similar situations or completely opposite situations, like the happiness of the wedding to, Richard and Susan dealing with her being shot in Morocco. Like, I think that's like very well done in this movie in terms of how they blend the scenes together. But I do agree, as a result, by the end, it does feel kind of difficult to connect. You just feel sad. You feel like this overwhelming sadness for all these people who like are not bad people. They've just they're it's the circumstances of life, right? They're just dealing with in extreme situations, obviously very extreme situations. But it does leave you feeling a bit empty at the end and a bit hollow. But I do think that journey is incredibly well done. I also think I think Jim might have mentioned at the beginning, I don't think we really talked about, but the cinematography I think is great. It's all shot on location. Like they literally went to all these places and shot the film on location, so like it looks really great. The cinematographer Rodrigo Prieto has worked with a lot of really great filmmakers. He's done a lot of Martin Scorsese's films too, so like he does a really great job, and I think it looks really great. But
the scenes in Japan were really cool. The final scene where they're painting out across the city
was a great final shot.
That was really cool,
and it's super haunting. Like the girl is just like, it's like she's finally. And that's the other thing that bugs me about the Japanese story, is it's a little heavy-handed, her like sexual frustration, like that she just like strips.
Yeah.
She just like strips naked. It's
or what she does with the dentist.
Yeah, it's a bit much. Like I get what they're trying to convey, that she's like so frustrated with her disability, and like she's at an age where like she wants to be sexually active, but she's got this disability that just seems to keep getting in her way. So like she just feels like it just seems like she's like spiraling, right? But the like stripping naked at the end does seem a little over top. But I get it's kind of metaphorical too, because it's like this, complete revealing of yourself, like opening yourself up to the world, and you just like. And you almost think like at the end, it's kind of implied that she might kill herself, because like there's like a foreshadowing where when he's down in the lobby with the cop, like the cop reveals that his daughter had told him that his wife had jumped, and he's like, no, who told you that? Like, quit bringing this up. She shot herself. And then you're like, oh shit. And then you go back up and she's not in the apartment. It's kind of like implied that maybe she jumped. So I think that's kind of an interesting moment, but I don't know.
I was wondering about that.
Cat's bag.
Yeah, I was curious.
Did she jump, or did she shoot herself?
The woman shot the mother shot herself, because that's what the father, the Japanese girl's father, in the lobby of the hotel, he goes, "Stop bugging me about this. I've told the cops a million times. She shot herself in the apartment, and Chiyoko found her. So the daughter found her mom, and I think that's also why she's so messed up. She found her mom had killed herself."
So we think that the reason why Chiyoko was telling the police that her mother jumped was foreshadowing that she's thinking about jumping, or potentially did jump in the future. Is that what we're supposed to believe? Because that was confusing to me too. I didn't understand why
she lied.
Yeah, why?
I thought she was trying to be dramatic to the cop. She was trying to woo and be like, "Don't you feel bad for me? Take pity on me." And
I feel like seeing your mother shoot herself in the
I was
head,
worried the cat was going to jump.
The cat?
Yeah, no, you're right.
Cat?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I don't know. That was another thing that just left me like, what? Another twist.
I think
already twisted story. Like,
I think
another twist.
I think you could take it a couple different ways. I mean, I think that maybe she lied about it because she's thinking about killing herself. She's thinking about jumping, and something maybe she's thought about for a long time. And maybe it's implied that she is confused. Maybe she's confused. Maybe it's a story that she just has in her head, or something that she's been playing in her head. I think there's a couple different ways you could take it. Well, guys,
hold on. I have a few more thoughts.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was just going to ask, does anyone have any other thoughts?
Yes. So I have two thoughts. The first thing was when the couple was in Morocco in that little village. It really made me think about, like, it was kind of a weird feeling. I was like, how cool is it that they get to see the actual culture, like the real true culture of this Moroccan village? But at the same time, she was shot in the shoulder. So, like, it's not good, but it's like, I guess what I mean is when I've traveled, so like I've been to Germany, I've been to Spain, and I've been to big cities within those places. And I'm not necessarily a big city person myself, and I would think it would be really cool to see the true culture of the country. Like, Vince, I know you've been to Sevilla in Spain, which is a much smaller town, and you knew people who live there, so you got to really experience the culture there, which sounds like something that would be very cool. And like, obviously she was shot, and obviously it was not a good situation that they had to be in this small village, but it was interesting to see the people of that village kind of take care of her, that old lady who was there and kind of, you know, watching over her as she healed or laid there and, you know, trying to heal. And the guy, the tour guide guy that was there for Brad Pitt the whole time. I don't know. I just thought it was cool to see that connection. And even though they're so different people, how people can help each other. And then my second thought was about the whole coming back across the border in Tecate. So I've been to the border crossing in San Diego and Tecate for work before. And I've been into the city of Tecate, and it's not a place where I would want my children to be, even with me. I didn't want to be there when I was there. It's like, it's a really harsh manufacturing city. And I thought they portrayed the border crossing pretty accurately. So I crossed into Tecate, and then I also crossed back over into Mexicali, which is like a little farther away from there, but just really strange. Like, if you've never been there before, it just I've
never been there.
It makes you, I mean, when you're crossing over the literal border in a car, even though like I was completely legal, I had a work visa, like the whole thing, I was extremely nervous that I was going to somehow get stuck in Mexico, or for some reason they were going to have a problem with our car. And it's always going back into the US. It's not going into Mexico. Yep. Like, the way they drove into Mexico is so accurate. When we drove,
just take off.
Yeah. So I'll try to tell the story quickly, but when we went to Mexico to work the first day, we have to like go to the there's like an office. You have to go get your work visa signed or whatever. We look it up the night before, like, okay, we know where this place is. We drive across the border, and then we're in the city of Tecate looking for this office. And the GPS tells us to go down this like back alley. And we're like, nope. And what happened was we had already, like, we went across the border without having any work visa signed at all. So we're in Mexico, but like the office was at the border. So like we had gotten into the country with no problems. Like they barely even checked us. And we had to drive back to the border, walk across to the US side, get our visa signed, and then walk back. It was, I don't know, it was just really interesting to see their portrayal of it, because it was pretty accurate.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kory.
I was just going to say, when we went to San Diego and we rented our car, literally the guy at the rental place at the airport was like, don't go to Mexico.
Right.
And we were like, why? He's just like, it's not a good place. And we're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like, and we just didn't.
Yeah. I mean, when we're driving through Tecate, there's, I mean, not all of Mexico's bad, right?
Yeah, not all. I do resent that sentiment.
Right. Because when we were driving through Tecate, there's like burnt up cars on the side of the road, like just houses in shambles. And of course, I was going to a factory, and the factory was beautiful, but I mean, the rest of it's just like almost a third world country. It was crazy.
I think it depends on what part of Mexico you're going to.
Yeah,
obviously.
Absolutely.
I mean, I went to Mexico for 3 years in a row. I went to a town with my family called Puerto Escondido on the southwest coast, and it's not a tourist town. It's not an all-inclusive area. It's just a small surf town in the middle of the state of Oaxaca. Like, it's not a touristy place at all. Like, there was, you know, it was real Mexico. So I mean, but I never felt unsafe there. And you know, I walked around at night a few times when I was I would have been 14 the last year I went, or 15 the last year I went. You know, I walked around the streets, and I never had any
I think the rental guy just meant like, don't go to Mexico just to go to Mexico and like drive around.
Driving a car over the border too, like Zach said, could open up, like you saw in the movie, can open up a lot of problems. Yeah, whether you're an American or a Mexican, the border thing just causes so many more problems.
Yeah. And those border towns are really sketchy. A lot of them are, maybe not all of them, but the ones I've been to are very sketchy.
I think the other thing that naturally opens up when you're next to that border is the illegal trafficking of like drugs and other things, because you're right next to the border.
Right.
I don't want to make assumptions, but I feel like that could be a safe assumption to make, because it's, you're right next to the United States and the border there. So there's a lot of things that's going to happen on the border. But the other thing I want to mention is going back to the first thing you said. I've been to Morocco. So I texted these guys. I went to Morocco. Hold on. I went to Morocco before you make fun of me, I went to Morocco for a 3-day weekend when I was in Spain and did my study abroad. I took a cruise, not a cruise ship, but like just a small ship over the Gibraltar Strait from the southern tip of Spain to Africa. And then I was with like a tour group. So I was with like
So you were with Brad Pitt.
I was not with Brad Pitt.
And Kate Blanchett. Cool.
But I was with a tour guide group. It was like a what's it called? Those companies? Those companies that like you pay like to do, like you pay for everything and they take care of it and they like take you around. I can't think of the word I'm looking for.
Like a tour guide, pretty much.
Yeah, but there's a word for it.
Tour guide.
Yeah, I don't know.
It starts with a C. I know what you're thinking of.
It's not tour.
Concierge.
No.
Concierge. That's what you're thinking of, Corey?
No, it'll come to me later. There's a word for like these it's not even a travel agency. It's like, it's a word for these companies like that you can pay them like for a package, like you get to pay for travel, for food and drink, for excursion. So it's an excursion group.
That was aggressive.
Because I was trying to think what it was called. So they were an excursion group and you could do a weekend trip in Morocco. And so like I didn't go to like any, like one of the most famous cities in Morocco, obviously, is Casablanca. That's where they go at the end for tour of the hospital. It's like the biggest city, one of the biggest cities in Morocco. But I went to Chefchaouen, I think is how you say it. It's one of the other big cities. But there was a couple cities we stopped because we went to like 4 cities. There were some that were like, it was like Morocco. It wasn't like a touristy, like a big city. And I know like the average person is gonna go, oh, I want to go for a vacation in Morocco. Like that's not like, the first place people want to go. But I mean, it was a very beautiful country. It was a very cool experience. And, I didn't go to a rural village in the middle of the desert, but I got to see some cool things. And it's kind of cool watching the movie and seeing, because they did film in Morocco. They filmed in 2 or 3 areas and cities and towns in Morocco. So kind of cool seeing that. But fun fact, I've been there for a 3-day weekend. And
thanks for the invite.
Did you guys play on that?
No,
I wish.
That was beautiful. You're welcome. Well, all right. Do you guys have any parting thoughts? Zach, Kory, Jimmy, any final thoughts on 2006's Babel?
I'm going to grade the movie. It was a 7.7.
That's pretty high.
I would give it somewhere around that probably.
Wow, you really liked it, huh?
I give it a solid 7.
8. An 8 is a solid score, newbie.
Okay, Dave.
I would give it probably. I would probably give it closer to an 8. I like this movie a lot more than I did the last time I saw it. I graded a little bit lower the last time I watched it, but this time around, I think I appreciate it more. I like Iñárritu's aesthetic. I like everything he does. I enjoy his sadness that he immerses you in. I don't know. I just like it.
Yeah,
Go
ahead, Zach.
It wasn't a classic.
No, I don't. I wouldn't call it a classic.
My score of this movie, I'll probably never watch it again. I get what it's doing, but I'm gonna say probably like a 5.1. I appreciate some
average.
of the things.
I appreciate that you appreciate things about it, though. It sounded like there was things that you liked about it.
I'm not going to completely bag it, but I could never see myself watching it again. If I could have those 2.5 hours back, I'd take them back.
You're not gonna buy it on Blu-ray now?
No, I won't cop that on a Blu-ray.
Come on,
even if it's in the bargain bin.
It was worth it to have a conversation with your friends, a good discussion with friends.
Yeah. I'll take that as the value I'll take out of it.
What lesson did we learn? Don't buy either of your sons a BB gun. Or they'll smoke somebody in the side of the neck.
Kind of
I'm pretty sure a BB gun doesn't shoot 3 kilometers.
A 270 Winchester M70 rifle.
Hold on, isn't
the they could kill a rhino from like 200 yards away.
What'd you say, James?
Isn't the moral of the story is don't go on a vacation in Morocco because that would solve literally all the problems.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's
You know,
true.
honestly,
They never went on
if I was the
vacation.
Moroccan tourism guide, I would
No,
I would ban this movie.
I disagree because it would have solved the problems for Richard and Susan and Amelia, but the boys were still going to shoot at that bus whether they were on it.
But would have that seat been empty?
Don't go hunting in Morocco if you're Japanese.
There you go. Don't leave your kids with your nanny in San Diego.
It's an illegal alien.
You guys are terrible.
Oh, goodness.
All right. Well, on that note, we'll end it here. Thank you guys for joining me for an episode of Classics We're Embarrassed We Have Not Seen. I enjoyed having you guys play and picking a movie to discuss here, even though Jim said he didn't enjoy it. We kind of deemed the film not necessarily a classic, but that's okay. It's all in good fun anyway. So thank you for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed the conversation, and we will be back very soon with more episodes of the podcast, as well as more episodes of the game. Until next time, Zach, Kory, Jim, and I'm Vince, the Film Nerd Podcast. Go watch some movies.